The girl at the counter. It was a soft, rainy evening when Keanu Reeves walked into a small family-owned bakery near his film set. He had been working all day, moving through tough scenes and loud crowds. His shoulders were tired, his mind needed quiet. He loved places like this bakery, where the smell of fresh bread and sweet cakes wrapped around you like a warm hug. He stepped inside, wearing his old black jacket and a simple hat pulled low so no one would make a fuss. The bakery was nearly empty except for an old couple sitting by the window, and one young girl in a wheelchair waiting at the counter. Keanu looked at her from a distance. She seemed so small against the wooden counter, her hands trembling as she held onto a tiny brown purse. She had short black hair that curled around her pale cheeks. Her clothes looked clean, but worn out, like they had been washed too many times. She kept looking at the menu board, her eyes darting between the cakes and her purse. Keanu could sense she was fighting with herself, counting coins in her mind. He knew that feeling, the way your stomach twists when you want something so small. But life has made you believe you cannot have it. The bakery owner, a kind woman with flour on her hands, leaned forward and asked the girl gently, "Sweetheart, what would you like today?" The girl licked her dry lips. Her voice was so soft, Keanu could barely hear it from where he stood. She said, "May I please have one chocolate pastry and a small bread roll for my mother?" Then she opened her purse and carefully took out a few coins. She counted them one by one. Keanu noticed how her fingers shook each time a coin dropped onto the counter. It was not enough. She knew it. The owner knew it too. There was a heavy silence. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she tried to smile through it. She whispered, I don't have enough today. Can I pay you the rest later? My mother is sick. She loves your bread so much. I promise I will pay you back." Her voice cracked, and her wheelchair squeaked as she shifted uncomfortably. Behind her, two young men in line began to snicker. One of them said under his breath, "She probably wants it for free." People like her always have a story. Keanu felt anger rise in his chest. He hated when people with big hearts got judged for asking for kindness. He stepped closer, trying not to draw too much attention. He watched as the bakery owner looked at the girl with pity, but her eyes flicked to the cash register and then back at the girl. The woman was kind, but her business was struggling too. There were bills to pay, ovens to fix. It was a small place barely getting by. She sighed, "Sweetheart, I wish I could, but I can't do credit. I'm so sorry." The girl's eyes dropped to her lap. She quickly grabbed her few coins back and pushed them deep into her purse. Her shoulders curled in, her tiny body sinking into the wheelchair as if she wanted to disappear. But then, something in her face changed. She looked up at the owner with the sweetest smile. "It's okay, miss. Please don't feel bad. Thank you for listening." She turned her chair to leave, wheels squeaking softly on the tiled floor. Keanu's heart twisted. He could not just stand there. Before she could reach the door, Keanu stepped forward. He placed his hand gently on the back of her wheelchair. She froze, surprised by the stranger's touch. Keanu knelt down beside her, his eyes level with hers. His voice was warm, like a soft blanket. "Hi, I heard what you said. What's your name?" The girl's lips trembled. "Emma," she whispered. Keanu smiled. "Emma, do you mind if I buy you and your mother what you wanted, and maybe a few extra pastries for later?" "I'd love to do that for you." Emma's eyes widened, glassy with tears. She tried to protest, shaking her head. "No, sir, please, I don't want charity. I just wanted to pay later." But Keanu gently touched her hand. "Emma, I'm not giving you charity. I'm buying something from this bakery too. Let's just say we're sharing a meal, okay? You deserve good food. Your mother does too." The bakery fell silent. The two young men who had laughed now looked down at their shoes. The old couple by the window stared at Keanu, whispering to each other in surprise. The owner behind the counter blinked back tears of her own. She began packing a warm box of pastries and fresh bread, adding in a few extra treats that Emma hadn't dared to look at. When she handed the box to Keanu, he placed it carefully on Emma's lap. Emma looked at the box, then up at Keanu. Her lips trembled. She whispered, "Thank you. No one has ever done this for me." Keanu smiled. "Emma, You don't owe me anything, but if you ever feel strong enough, maybe one day you can help someone else the way you wanted to help your mother. That's how kindness grows." Emma nodded, wiping her tears. The old couple clapped quietly. The young men stepped forward and awkwardly offered to open the bakery door for Emma's wheelchair. Keanu watched her roll outside, a tiny spark of hope in her eyes that hadn't been there before. He stayed in the bakery for a moment longer, looking out the window as Emma disappeared down the street, holding her box like a treasure chest. Keanu knew this was just the beginning. There was something about this girl that made him feel he hadn't seen the last of her. Maybe their lives were about to be connected in ways he couldn't yet imagine. A promise in the rain. Keanu stood by the bakery window for a few more minutes, watching Emma move away through the rain. The little box of pastries sat safely on her lap, protected by a plastic cover. Cars passed by, spraying water onto the sidewalk, but Emma didn't seem to care about the cold or the wet. She kept moving her wheels carefully, one hand a bit slower than the other because of an old brace wrapped around her wrist. Keanu felt something inside him, a mix of sadness and a question that wouldn't leave his mind. Who was this girl really? Why did he feel so pulled toward her story? He turned back to the bakery counter and paid for his coffee, but his mind wasn't on the warm cup in his hand. The owner, who had just watched what happened, leaned closer and whispered, "Thank you for helping her. She comes here sometimes, always asking for the smallest piece of bread. She never begs. She always tries to pay. Her mother's health is bad. I heard she's sick in bed most days." Keanu nodded, a knot forming in his chest. "Does she live nearby?" The owner pointed to the far end of the street, just a few blocks down, in a small apartment above the old hardware shop. Keanu thanked her, pushed open the bakery door, and stepped into the rain. The cold drops hit his shoulders, but he didn't care. He followed the wet marks on the sidewalk where Emma's wheels had passed, like soft tracks telling him where to go. He found her stopped at a crosswalk. The traffic light was broken, and the cars kept rushing by. Emma sat at the edge, looking left and right, waiting for a break she could use to wheel herself across. Her tiny body shivered under the thin sweater she wore. Keanu stepped up behind her, holding his umbrella over her head. She turned, startled. But when she saw him, she smiled, a shy, grateful smile that made his heart hurt. "Hi again," he said softly. "Need help?" Emma looked down. "I can do it. I always do it. But thank you." A small horn sounded as a car splashed a puddle dangerously close to her wheels. Keanu didn't hesitate. He looked at the drivers, raised his hand to stop them, and gently pushed Emma's wheelchair across the road. Cars paused. People inside stared, not at the famous actor, but at the simple, quiet moment, a man helping a girl cross safely. On the other side, Emma laughed shyly. "You didn't have to. People don't usually wait for me." Keanu knelt beside her, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. "Emma, do you mind if I ask, do you have someone helping you at home? Anyone else besides your mother?" She shook her head. "My father left when I was 5. My mom got sick 2 years ago. We have no one else. I do small things, sell pencils. Sometimes I draw too, but no one wants drawings from a girl like me." Keanu felt like the rain was washing away the noise in his head. It was just him and this fragile girl, and a question he couldn't hold back. "Emma, do you trust me?" Her eyes widened, unsure how to answer. He smiled gently. "I'm not asking you to come with me or do anything scary. I just want you to know, if you ever need help, real help, can you promise you'll tell me? I don't want you to be alone in this." Emma looked down at her shaking hands. She squeezed them into fists to stop the trembling. "People always say they'll help, then they leave. My mom says we must never hope too much. It hurts more when hope breaks." Her words felt like tiny knives. Keanu's throat tightened. He touched the edge of her wheelchair. "Steady and calm. Emma, I'm not everyone, and you don't have to believe me right now. Just promise, if things get really bad, you'll find me here at the bakery. I'll come every evening after work." Emma looked up into his eyes. The rain had washed away her tears, but new ones were forming. "Okay," she whispered. "I promise." Keanu nodded, stood up, and placed his umbrella in her hands. "Keep this. I have more. You need it more than I do," she tried to say. "No," but he smiled again, that warm, gentle smile that made her believe, just a little, that maybe this time hope wouldn't break so easily. As Emma wheeled away toward her small apartment, Keanu stood alone on the wet sidewalk, watching her until she disappeared behind a rusted gate. He felt the city's noise returning, the horns, the rain, the footsteps of strangers, but inside him, something quiet and strong began to grow. He didn't know yet, but that promise in the rain was about to change both their lives forever. The hidden sketchbook days passed like pages in an old book. Every evening after his film shoots, Keanu returned to that same bakery. He sat by the window with a cup of coffee and waited. Sometimes he bought extra bread and asked the owner to save it for Emma, but she didn't come back. Rain turned into clear skies, but the seat by the window stayed empty. Still, Keanu waited. Each night he looked out at the streetlights, hoping to see her little wheelchair moving toward him. The bakery owner would shake her head softly, saying, "I hope she's okay." One night, a week later, Keanu was just about to leave when he saw a tiny figure at the door. It was Emma, but she looked different. Her sweater was soaked through, her hair clung to her cheeks, and her small hands were red from the cold. In her lap sat a thin, torn paper bag. When she rolled inside, people in the bakery turned to look. Emma avoided everyone's eyes and went straight to Keanu's table. He stood up at once, pulling out a chair beside him so he could sit next to her. "Emma," he said softly, "where have you been?" Emma opened the paper bag with shaking fingers. Inside was a tiny box of old pencils and a thick, wrinkled sketchbook. She pushed it toward him without meeting his eyes. "I drew something for you. I hope it's okay. I wanted to thank you for helping me and my mom." Her voice was so small, it almost disappeared under the soft hum of the bakery. Keanu opened the sketchbook slowly. Inside were pages filled with delicate pencil drawings. Each picture told a piece of her life: her mother lying in bed, their tiny apartment with cracked walls, the bakery with its warm glow, and him, Keanu himself, kneeling beside her in the rain, his umbrella over her head. Keanu turned each page carefully, his throat tight. The drawings were beautiful. They weren't perfect in a professional way, but they carried something more, raw truth, the kind that could make your heart ache. People at nearby tables leaned over, trying to peek at what he was holding. Emma's face turned red. She whispered, "I was scared to show you. People laugh at my drawings. They say they're childish. But I see the world this way." Keanu shook his head slowly. "Emma, these are not childish. They're real. They're alive. Do you know how many people wish they could see the world with so much heart?" Emma's eyes shimmered with a mix of pride and disbelief. No one had ever said that to her before. She hugged the sketchbook to her chest like a shield. Then, before Keanu could say more, Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. She placed it on the table, pushing it across to him with trembling hands. "I promised you. Remember, if things got really bad, I would find you. My mother is worse now. I have no money for her medicine. The landlord said we have to leave if we don't pay rent. I don't know what to do. I wrote down where I live. If you really meant what you said that night, can you come?" Keanu's fingers rested on the envelope. His mind spun with worry. He thought of how many people had probably turned this girl away with polite words, but no action. He looked at her small face, pale under the bakery lights, but her eyes were strong. She wasn't begging. She was fighting. For her mother. For herself. Keanu stood up. "Emma, you did the hardest part. You asked for help. Now it's my turn. I'll take you home tonight. I want to meet your mother. We'll find a way together." Emma bit her lip, tears brimming again. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she nodded. Keanu bent down, gently lifted her bag of pencils and her sketchbook, and carried them for her as he pushed her wheelchair out into the night. Outside, the city lights seemed softer somehow. As they moved through the quiet streets, Emma told him stories about her mother, how she used to sing lullabies when Emma was scared at night, how she would spend hours sewing tiny clothes for Emma's dolls before her hands got too weak. The more Keanu listened, the more he felt a fire build in his chest. This wasn't just about food or money anymore. This was about dignity, about respect, about helping a family hold on to hope. When the world had tried so hard to steal it, they reached the hardware shop at the far end of the street. Above it was a narrow staircase that looked too tight for Emma's wheelchair. Keanu didn't hesitate. He lifted her gently in his arms, careful not to make her feel like a burden. Emma pressed her sketchbook to her chest, looking at him, with eyes wide as stars. "No one's carried me since I was little," she whispered. Keanu just smiled. "Steady and kind. Sometimes we all need to be carried, Emma. There's no shame in that." He climbed the steps slowly, each creak under his feet a promise that no matter how small or broken this place looked, tonight it would be filled with something stronger, hope. Inside the dim apartment, he would meet a woman who could barely lift her head. But what he didn't know yet was that this night would lead to something that would surprise not just Emma's neighborhood, but the whole city, and one day, the world. Asterisk the mother's secret wish. Keanu's arms ached as he carried Emma up the narrow stairs, but he didn't care. Each step made him feel like he was moving closer to something he couldn't name yet, a truth hidden behind this girl's quiet bravery. When they reached the top, Emma pointed to a thin wooden door with peeling paint. Keanu gently set her back in her wheelchair and knocked softly. There was no answer at first, just the faint sound of coughing from inside. Emma turned the handle herself and pushed the door open. The apartment was dark and cold. The floor was cracked, and a single bulb hung from the ceiling, flickering like it was about to die. There were 2 chairs, an old mattress on the floor, and a tiny stove that looked like it hadn't been used in days. On the mattress lay Emma's mother, wrapped in thin blankets that didn't look warm enough. Her face was pale, her eyes half open, as if waking from a long dream. "Mama," Emma called softly, rolling closer. "Mama, look who's here." Her mother turned her head weakly. Her eyes tried to focus on Keanu, but it took her a moment to see him clearly. She looked confused at first, then her lips curved into the softest, tired smile. "Emma, who is this kind man?" Keanu knelt down beside the mattress, his hand brushing the old blanket. "Hello, Mum. My name is Keanu. I met your daughter at the bakery. She told me how strong you are, how hard you fight every day." The woman tried to sit up but couldn't. Her thin hands reached out, trembling. Keanu took them gently. They were so cold, like winter. He looked around the small room. There was no heater, no food on the tiny counter, no sign of fresh medicine. Anger bubbled inside him, but he forced it down. This was not the time for anger. This was the time for action. Emma pulled out her sketchbook and showed her mother the drawings. The woman's eyes softened, glistening with pride. She tried to speak, but the words stuck in her dry throat. Keanu opened a bottle of water he'd carried in his bag and helped her sip it slowly. Her eyes closed in relief. Double quotes. "Emma is very talented," Keanu said. "She showed me her drawings. They are beautiful. She sees the world with a heart many people don't have." Emma's mother let out a raspy laugh that turned into a cough. When she calmed down, she whispered, "Emma was born fighting. The doctors said she would never walk. They were right, but they didn't see how strong her spirit was. She's been my legs, my hope, my everything." The old woman's eyes flickered to Emma's wheelchair, and then back to Keanu. "We don't want charity, sir. We only want a chance. My dream is for Emma to study, to draw, to make a life where people don't look at her wheelchair first." She reached under her thin pillow and pulled out a small envelope. Inside were a few crumpled papers, medical bills, rent notices, and at the very bottom, a tiny photo of Emma when she was little, standing in leg braces with her mother's hands holding her steady. Keanu felt a lump in his throat. He could see the years of sacrifice in the mother's eyes. He knew he couldn't walk away. He sat back on the dusty floor, his voice steady but warm. "Emma made me a promise. She promised she would find me if things got too hard. Now I promise you this. I will help you both, not just tonight, but truly help." Emma looked up quickly, her eyes wide. "How, sir? No one cares about people like us. We don't matter." Keanu reached out, tapping her sketchbook. "Emma, these drawings matter. You matter. Your mother matters. You have a gift that people need to see. Maybe no one ever told you that, but I will. He took out his phone and called someone, a friend in the city who ran a community center for kids and young artists. Keanu explained everything while Emma and her mother watched, holding hands. He spoke calmly, but with a fire that made Emma believe he really would not let go. When he hung up, he looked at Emma and her mother. Tomorrow, I'll bring someone here. We'll get your mother the medicine she needs. We'll talk to the landlord, too. But there's one thing you must promise me. You will never hide your art again. You will draw. You will show people. Deal? Emma's mother whispered, her voice breaking. She doesn't believe people want her art. They laugh at her. Keanu looked right into Emma's eyes. Emma, they only laugh because they can't see what you see. You're not small. You're strong. You have something special, and I will help you show it. Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She looked at her mother, who nodded, as if passing her a torch she had held for too long alone. Okay, Emma said softly. I'll try. Keanu stood up, brushing dust from his jeans. He pulled the thin blanket tighter round Emma's mother and promised he'd be back at sunrise with help. When he left that tiny apartment, he felt something shift inside him, a new sense of purpose. He had been known for so many things in his life, but maybe this was what really mattered, being the person who stood beside people when they felt invisible. What he didn't know was that in a few days, Emma's simple drawings would end up somewhere he could never have imagined, and they would change not only her life but the lives of thousands who needed to believe that kindness still existed in the world. Asterisk the sketch that went viral. Keanu didn't sleep much that night. He lay in his hotel room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Emma and her mother in that cold apartment. The memory of Emma's thin hands and her mother's weak voice stayed in his mind. Like a soft echo, he kept replaying the promise he had made, not just to help with money, but to help them find hope that wouldn't disappear with the sunrise. Early the next morning, before the sun rose, he met his friend Lucas outside the community center. Lucas was an artist too. He believed in giving kids like Emma a chance to be seen. Lucas was holding a big cardboard folder under his arm, full of blank paper and colored pencils. When Keanu told him about Emma's drawings, Lucas didn't hesitate. If her art is as honest as you say, Lucas said, people will see her heart. That's what matters. Together, they went back to the little apartment above the hardware shop. When they knocked, Emma opened the door. She looked, surprised to see Lucas, but didn't hide her wheelchair behind the door like she sometimes did. When strangers came, she let them in, her eyes wide with hope and fear mixed together. Lucas sat on the floor next to her while Keanu helped her mother drink some warm soup he'd brought. Lucas spread out blank sheets and softly said, Emma, will you draw something? For me, anything. Draw how you feel today. At first, Emma hesitated. Her hands hovered over the paper. Her mother watched, her eyes shining even though her cough sounded worse than the night before. Slowly, Emma picked up a pencil. Her tiny fingers gripped it tight. She started with soft lines. A window with rain outside, a little girl looking through it, and a hand reaching down from the sky to hold hers. Lucas leaned closer, watching every line appear. When she finished, he sat back, speechless for a moment. Emma, this is powerful. It's not just a drawing, it's a feeling. Keanu knelt beside them. Emma, would you trust us to share this? Not to make fun of it, but to show people that hope can look like this. Emma's eyes darted to her mother, who nodded weakly. Okay, Emma said in a whisper. That night, Lucas took a photo of Emma's sketch and posted it online. He wrote a simple caption, a girl who fights every day drew this. She dreams of paying her mother's medical bills by sharing her art. Maybe the world can help. He didn't tag Keanu. He didn't mention his name. They didn't want fame to overshadow Emma's art. But sometimes kindness finds its way. Within hours, the sketch was shared by people who saw the raw truth in it. A hand reaching down through the rain, hope pulling someone out of the darkness. Artists reposted it, teachers printed it to show their students, and someone even painted a giant mural on an empty wall downtown, copying Emma's lines stroke for stroke. People didn't even know her name yet. They just called her the girl who draws hope. Back in their tiny apartment, Emma didn't fully understand how big this was becoming. She just kept drawing, her mother watching with tired but proud Eyes, one evening, Emma said softly, "Mama, do you think people will laugh when they find out it's from me?" Her mother touched her hair, whispering, "They will not laugh, my love. They will stand for you." Keanu stayed close through it all. He made sure Emma's mother saw a doctor who gave her new medicine that helped her sleep through the nights without coughing so much. He found a small heater to keep the room warm, but he knew money would run out. He needed to do something bigger. One morning, as he sat by Emma's side, watching her sketch another piece, an idea came to him, risky but honest. He took out his phone and recorded a short video. In it, he spoke softly, like a friend sharing a secret. "This is Emma. She is the girl behind the drawing you've all seen. She lives here with her mother who is sick, and she never asked for anything but a chance. I believe in her. I believe her art can remind us that kindness still lives in this world. If you believe it too, share her story." Emma blushed so deeply she hid behind her sketchbook when he filmed her. But she giggled too. It was the first time Keanu had heard her laugh. He knew that laugh meant she was starting to believe she wasn't invisible anymore. The video was posted online. It spread faster than anyone expected. News sites picked it up. Keanu Reeves helps disabled girls art reach the world. People sent messages from every corner of the country, asking to buy Emma's sketches, to print her drawings on posters, even to set up an art show just for her. But with fame comes darkness too. That night, as Keanu left the apartment to get more medicine, he heard voices at the bottom of the stairs, two men from the neighborhood, the same ones who had laughed at Emma in the bakery. They were talking about her in harsh whispers. "She's getting all this attention now. Maybe she's lying about being poor, but she's making money with that sad story." Keanu felt a chill. He knew this was the next fight, protecting Emma not just from poverty, but from people who couldn't stand to see her hope shine brighter than their cruelty. He looked up the dark stairwell toward Emma's tiny home. He promised himself, no matter what came next, he would not let the world break her again. And deep in the shadows, something else waited, an unexpected betrayal that would test Emma's strength, her mother's faith, and Keanu's promise like never before. The truth that could not break Emma's small apartment felt warmer these days, not just because of the new heater Keanu brought, but because hope was finally alive in those cracked walls. Every corner smelled of fresh paper and old pencils. Every night, Emma sketched new drawings, each one telling a story she had once been too shy to share. Keanu came by every evening, bringing soup, medicine, and news about her growing support online. People were sending letters, donations even, art supplies from places so far Emma had to look them up on a map. For the first time, her mother could rest without worry pressing on her chest like a stone. For the first time, Emma looked at herself in the mirror and did not see a burden. She saw a dreamer with something worth giving. But hope is never safe from those who want to crush it. One rainy afternoon, while Keanu was away on set, a loud knock shook the door of their tiny apartment. Emma wheeled herself over, careful not to wake her mother. Outside stood the two men from the neighborhood, the same ones who had mocked her at the bakery. They leaned against the doorway, grinning, in a way that made Emma's stomach twist. "Look at you now," one sneered. "Little Miss Charity, huh? We heard you got people sending money. Where's our share?" Emma's hands shook on the wheel grips. "This is for my mother's medicine," she said quietly. "It's not for don't lie," the taller man said, stepping inside without asking. He looked around the small room, eyes landing on the envelope where Keanu kept the donations safe. "You're just another beggar girl with a good sob story. But if you don't share, maybe we tell people you're faking it." Emma's throat closed. The fear that people would believe them, that all her work, all her mother's hope, would vanish, made her heart pound so hard she felt sick. She tried to push her chair back, but the taller man grabbed her wheel. "Where's the money?" "Huh?" Just then, a voice echoed through the stairwell. "Get out." It was Keanu, soaked from the rain. He stood at the doorway, eyes dark and steady. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just stepped forward until the two men backed away, suddenly unsure of themselves. Keanu looked at them the same way he looked at villains in movies, calm, cold, but full of something they could never touch. "Emma owes you nothing," he said softly. She's never lied about who she is. You want to steal her hope, you'll have to fight me first." The taller man laughed nervously but didn't move closer. "She's just a poor crippled girl, man. She deserves more than you could ever dream of." Keanu cut in. "Go. Before you find out what happens when you push people who've already survived worse than you ever will." They left without another word, slipping down the stairs into the rain. The room was silent except for Emma's soft sobs. Keanu knelt beside her, placing his hands on hers. "They can't touch you," he whispered. "You have done nothing wrong. Don't ever let them make you feel ashamed for having hope." Emma wiped her tears. "What if people believe them?" Keanu smiled gently. "Then you keep drawing. You keep showing the truth in your art. People can lie about words, but they can't lie about what they feel when they see your drawings. Your truth will be louder." Days turned into weeks. The whispers in the neighborhood faded when people saw Emma never asked for more than what she needed. The small gallery Lucas arranged displayed her sketches. People lined up around the block, some bringing flowers, others hugging Emma and telling her how her drawings made them feel less alone. Even kids in wheelchairs came, looking at her with wide eyes, seeing in her a future they never thought possible. Emma's mother grew stronger, bit by bit. The new medicine, the warmth in their home, the food they could finally afford. It gave her more days to watch her daughter shine. She sat in a chair at the gallery opening, tears streaming down her face as Emma signed her first piece sold. She whispered to Keanu, "You didn't just save her. You showed the world she was never invisible." Keanu shook his head softly. "No, ma'am. She saved herself. She just needed someone to believe." One night, when the gallery was quiet and the last visitor had gone, Emma rolled over to where Keanu stood looking at her framed drawing, the first one she'd given him, the hand reaching down through the rain. She looked up at him and smiled. "I know you're busy with movies and people. Why did you help me?" Keanu knelt down so they were eye to eye. "Because when the world tries to break someone who still has kindness left, that's when we have to stand closest. I didn't do this for you, Emma. I did it because you remind me what really matters." Emma reached into her sketchbook and pulled out a new drawing, this one of her mother, and Keanu standing under an umbrella together. She pressed it into his hands. "Thank you for holding my hope." Keanu didn't say anything more. He just hugged her, careful and warm, like a brother who knew the road ahead would not always be easy, but she would never walk it alone. And somewhere in that small gallery, filled with the smell of old pencils and fresh hope, Emma learned that sometimes when you ask to pay later, the world can surprise you by giving you back far more than you ever dreamed.